What's good? What's good? What's good with the family on this evening? Welcome to another episode of the Black and the Bold podcast. What's good? What's good? What is good? Welcome to the greatest podcast on your social media page, which is now Metaverse, whatever they want to call it. We in the house, we in the spot, and we getting ready to show out like we always do. It's that time again for the Black and the Bold podcast. Here you will hear some thought-provoking, gut-wrenching, and sometimes, yes, even some tear-jerking content from your boy that you just can't get enough of. But anyway, I'm the bold. We're going to run this thing right. We're going to do it in order. We're going to start with my brother, the Black, and we're going to run down the order. What's going on, Mr. Johnson? How you doing this evening, my brother?
What's going on, bro? This is your co-host, Dwayne Johnson. The other one on this show is the Black counterpart. I am from Valdosta, Georgia, graduate also of the illustrious Georgia Institute of Technology, also known as Georgia Tech, with my proudly tattooed bachelor's of electrical engineering, and also earned a master's degree also in University of Maryland, where I concentrated on project management. Finally, we've rested our family here in Valdosta, Georgia, where we have three beautiful kids along with my wife. And we've started our own company, which has been in operation now for several years, dealing with property management alongside our investments with the business name of Bridge Builder Education and Invest. So nothing proud to be here, brother. Definitely, I'd like to swing it over your way to do your end is mine, and as it goes, so bold. Did you unmute?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the best part of the show when the bowl shows up. You know how that goes. I am also a native of Valdosta, Georgia, graduate of Lowndes High School, graduate of University of Central Florida. I did get a chance to get that healthcare administration degree and had a master's of public administration from Ashford University. And now we have just last few months launched the E3 Legacy Group with a lot of great plans. And actually, we're working on the second leg of the business now. So things are going well. We're building now, and I'm excited about it. Also have two wonderful children. I have a new 18-year-old, so I don't know if I can call him a child, but I will. He'll always be my child. And and my daughter, she'll be 11 next month. So yeah, I got my hands full, my brother. Hands are full, but I can definitely handle it. But it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right. We just wouldn't be good brothers if we didn't let our little sister come in and introduce herself. She's been in ballet, and all that other piano lessons this week. So we want to welcome to our show the beautiful Suzette Michelle. Talk to him, young lady. How you doing?
Unmute for us.
Unmute. Unmute for us.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what happened. See, I need my brothers. Anyway, I am so glad to be back. Thank you, brothers. Last week, my mother was in the hospital. You guys sent some prayers up for me and held it down, and I certainly appreciate it greatly. But I am Suzette Michelle, the third counterpart of this wonderful Black and the Bold experience, and better deemed as the beautiful portion of it. And I am so glad to be a part of it. But I bring you greetings from Valdosta, Georgia, where I am native from. I also graduated from Lowndes High. I graduated from Valdosta Technical College with a degree in radiologic technology, where I serve the community through healthcare. I also have recently become a part of the entrepreneurship community, and I opened up my business Divine Shine in March of this year. But I am so excited to be a part of this trio, because we are talking about some real topics and we're getting into it, and we are in the middle of our blueprint series. So we've been getting some great advice, and I'm just so excited to see where we're going to be headed from this place moving on forward. We can only go up, 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 up and up from here. So I'm excited to be a part of it all. Back to you, fellas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know, right? Absolutely. We got to make sure we understand. Brother Bo, you
Yes,
got it.
sir. All right, all right. Well, tonight we want to welcome everybody here with us, and thank you so much for logging on and giving us some of your time tonight. We have another great one, in store for you all. We're caught back and ready to go. We're loaded for a good show. We've got some good information we want to share with you as we continue our blueprint series. As we're talking about just another opportunity, another way that we can address how can we rebuild the Black family and provide a blueprint to do so. So tonight we wanted to talk a little bit about a lot of the history the hidden Black history that we have endured for so many centuries. And our focus tonight is really to bring up some of the things that has happened in the past, and kind of bring up some of the struggles and the some of the mountains that we've had to climb as people, and then try to tie that together with some of the current events to kind of give us kind of juxtapose them together to see, have we made progress? Are we still kind of just grappling in the mud here, or where are we? And that's kind of what we want to do tonight. So we wanted to talk a little bit about where we started from. But before we do that, I'm going to send some shout outs real quick, because I know we've got some people on. Our faithful sister Shamanti, listen, the herb doctor is in the house. If you want some herbs, listen, this is the herb encyclopedia. This lady knows what herbs help what. I've been ghost following her Facebook page, and how she's really marketing all the herbs. So shout out to Sister Shamanti. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And of course, Nalita, all right. All right, don't you start tonight. Don't you start tonight, Nalita. Don't you start. You come in here and be good with us. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Please make sure you like and share and subscribe if you haven't subscribed thus far. And again, like, share, subscribe, let people know that we're on, so we can get our viewership up, and also we can let this message out. So we're going to jump right in to our topic tonight. I wanted to just talk a little bit about, some of the timelines, kind of where we come from, and some of the things we've dealt with. I mean, our Black history is yet unfolding. We have been lied to. We have been there's a lot of information that hasn't been told to us on purpose. We found out even with the Tulsa incident, a lot of the things that they did to us, they purposely did not share it. Some people's lives were threatened if they told the story of the horrific events that they did to us. And so we're just going to kind of talk about a little bit of just some of the things that we already know for sure happened. And then we're going to just break out the conversation for there. So we do encourage you all to put your comments in. Let us know, ask questions. And if that question or comment is thought provoking enough, we may just find a way to get you to join us in this conversation to help us flesh it out a little bit more. But we all know, starting from the 15th century, is where our story begins, according to accepted world history. There was some things that happened in the early 1400s that actually gave the green light for Christopher Columbus to make his first voyage to the New World back in 1492. So we already know that even once of course, it was called exploration and discovery. He was exploring, but he didn't discover nothing. But of course, from that point on, I think since 1492, our entire existence has been under fire by our oppressors, and I got to tell you, they haven't stopped pouring on the gas. Our family, from the very beginning, the family structure has been under attack. They have always found ways and opportunities to come in and try to break up our strength, break up our tenacity, break up our will, trying to do things to make sure that we don't continue to thrive as well as we have always done before. So of course we dealt with them coming in and and the Black and I talked about this a little bit. They did everything from buck breaking to sex being having sex farms and breeding farms. The actual open punishment of the man in front of the family. We also talked about the emasculation and the demasculation of men, which they are different. Two different ways to really pull down or strip a man from his God given abilities and strength. Even down to the master having children, with the slave wife, and making sure that that child would still require so much more care, although that child most of the time stayed in the house or had access to the house. And so there was a lot of things that was going on during that time. And to be honest with you, I've been looking over a few things, and it hasn't stopped. It really hasn't stopped. Our family is still under attack. Just keeping it right there with just with the heinous acts that they would commit just to keep rule and just to keep power. If you ask me, it's beyond humane. It's almost animalistic. It's demonic in a way, the way that they would treat us. And I think that that's something that we cannot forget in our families. And so that's something we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to break it up a little bit because we got so much to talk about, but we're definitely going to talk about that. What do y'all think about do you all think our family as a structure is still under attack, or are we so enthralled in such a pathology that we're basically digging our own ditch? What do you think? Black?
Well, it's a little both. So appreciate the question. Good question, and it's almost a loaded question because yeah, it has been affected a whole lot by the history and everything that you just mentioned. However, we are digging our own holes in a sense, but it's a lot of it is learned behavior. When we're talking about the demasculation and emasculation or emasculation, a lot of that is what has been inflicted upon us in comparison to the behaviors that we are exemplifying based on what has been inflicted upon us. Talk about the welfare system. I mean, we've talked about this before at length with regards to how that was implemented, how the whole ghetto uh, mentality and environment was put upon Black Americans. And so we all know that there's a history of that. Even the Jewish community in that history, but it also is scientific. You put two mice in a confined environment, it's going to cause turmoil in a closed small space. It's going to cause turmoil. So these are just examples of where the actions of an oppressive person or group can have an immediate effect on the generation at hand and the following generations. That would be my short answer, and I definitely like to turn it over to Suzette for her additional comment.
Well, gentlemen, I totally agree that it's on both sides. I do think that the Black family structure is definitely still under attack, but I do think we're also sabotaging from within as well. There is a term that only the term this term has only been identified since 1973. However, the methodology of it all dates back to slavery, and that term is the Stockholm syndrome. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but what that syndrome is that when the captives or the victims or the held captives, they begin to have some type of love or develop a relationship or a compassion towards the person that captures them. And that is a little bit of what happened in slavery in terms of dividing us as a culture in terms of the field house Negroes in versus the in house or the big house. Negroes. You know, they were all the same people, but they had two very different experiences of how they viewed captivity. So even though we're physically not in that environment anymore, but I think it's more of a mental captivity that we're in now. You know, sometimes we have all these different opportunities in terms of education, in terms of careers. Now, that does not remove all the other stuff that has developed over the years, the institutional racism and all of that. However, those things are available. The struggle is still real, but you know, in terms of availability and opportunity, our opportunities have kind of opened up by way of civil rights, by way of activism and all of that. So you know, it just comes down to it in today in 2021, like how bad do you want it? You know, how many obstacles are you willing to overcome all the trauma that we've had in our history? But I do think that sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, and we're just gonna have to unlearn and relearn some of the learned behaviors that we have adapted over the years. And sometimes it's because it was a survival mechanism, but at what point are we gonna try to change it for the better for the generations coming behind us?
Brother Bo, you've got the floor. Continue.
Yeah, I had a little computer glitch here, but I definitely agree with both of you all. Definitely seeing, kind of your perspectives and understanding that we've kind of evolved into a broken people, and the pathology is definitely something that is genetic. I mean, if we really delve into science a little bit, if PTSD can be passed down through genetics. There are a number of things that could be passed on as well. Fears and likes and dislikes, passions and desires, and all that stuff can be passed down as well. And it's just been a continual cycle of it's like it's almost like our culture and our existence has recycled the same dirty water, over the years. We're water, and we definitely have the strength and the power to be the people that we can be or were. But the very fact that it seems like we're definitely continuously recycling the same issues, the same circumstances, the same mind frames, and I believe a lot of that was by design, because if we go back, to our earliest experiences with slavery, our first experience with slavery was actually under the Spanish. And the Spanish, they were the ones that they learned a lot of their tactics from, the Romans and the Greeks and some of those others, some of their predecessors. And they learned a lot of the tactics on how to conquer from them. And so when they came over, I found it very interesting that they would consider Africans, and the same people that look the same way on our continent Native Americans. I think one of the first things that they did was try to separate us by I guess by what is that? It's not class, but it's when I guess by country, in a way, by calling those that were discovered on America soil as Native Americans, but those that were brought over on ships as Africans. Even though, if you read some of the memoirs of Christopher Columbus, you'll find that he said that they were copper-colored people. They had the woolly hair. They had beautiful bodies. They were excellent farmers and excellent naturemen. It's like, but they didn't look any different than those that were actually on the boat, albeit some were maybe the hue might have been a little bit different. Some were darker, some were light, but we already know there's a kaleidoscope that flows through our veins. You know what I'm saying? So, to look at it in that light, it just lets us understand and see that from the very beginning we have been under attack. They have, and it wasn't something that they would do. I guess, just up front. It was something that was always behind closed doors. It was always a trick. It was always, let me sneakily do this, and let me get in and try to divide them. And they haven't stopped. But not only that, because not only the the colonial slavery under the Spanish. But after that, when the timeline shifted a little bit, and because that happened, that was over from 1492 till around, shoot, it was at least 100 years, or a little over 100 years, that we actually had to deal, with the Spanish through all of the ways that they learned from the English, and the ways that they constantly tried to break us. Because, as you know, we were always trying to get out. We were always rebelling. We were always killing our masters. We were always trying to break out of this slavery, but they always had another chess move after we made our checkers move. So it's like they have always been 10, 20 steps ahead of us, even since 1492. And I think that's something that has kind of translated over until today, because all the tactics that they're using today, seemingly they've thought about this 30, 40, 50 years ago, especially when it comes through what happened in the late 70s and COINTELPRO and all. They already knew. These people who've been studying eugenics, these people, they've been studying lifestyles and civilizations and things like that. So it looks like our demise has always been part of the plan, and there is no other option for those that are African, outside of us dying or completely, denouncing our connection to anything Black. So this is something that is still happening, and our families are still suffering. And so I think that's something that we really have to deal with, because since from 1492 all the way to 1600, they had their foot on our necks. And I can go through all types of incidents, battles and explorations and discoveries and anti-slavery resistance moments and all kind of from 1492 to 1600. They did not take their foot off of our neck, not one time. So that's 108 years. That's from 1492 to 1600, they had a 108-year head start. And seemingly that spread has probably doubled or tripled at this point. And I may be underestimating how wide that spread is at this point. But I mean, if we were just to take the 1492 to 1600 incident, imagine everything that was done to us. Buck breaking. That's where the Mandingo comes from. Because if I tell you some stories about the Mandingo, the reason why the Mandingos were killed a lot is because the slave masters' wives were completely sexually attracted to them. The Mandingo was much bigger. He was much stronger. He actually, when he came into the room, just because of his size, he would intimidate all the other slave masters. When he would open his mouth, if I could pull it up and show you, when he would open his mouth and begin to talk, he would actually demand a certain level of power, which is why they constantly tried to break him. And the funny thing about it is, you're right, Brother Thomas, they're still doing it. So with all the things that have happened with that 108-year start, what are some of the things that you all think are still happening? Buck breaking, sex farms, them actually sleeping with the slave girls who had husbands, making them raise their, etc. Like some of these things, what do you all continuously see? What is it, something from 1492 you still see today? Let's not even get into the kidnapping, because that thing just morphed into a whole nother human trafficking situation. But you all tell.
Suzette, did you want to go first?
Well, yeah, actually, the sexualizing of the Black female. Back in the day, that one of the most known and prevalent cases is Sarah Bartman. I don't know if you all know her, but because of the way her God-given body was made, she was a spectacle, and they treated her as such. They sexualized her. They paraded her out of entertainment for entertainment's sake, and just really just broke down, her dignity, just for entertainment's sake. And it was because of how God made the, yes, because God how made her, her body. And so now, I think that some African American women are still experiencing being exploited because of the way their bodies are shaped. And sometimes, even till now, it's a trend. I don't know if you guys have heard of the BBL, but a lot of women are considering getting plastic surgery to make their bodies look like Sarah Bartman, with the big booties and stuff. And so, because they feel that that's what's socially accepted. Um, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. Those who have gotten their BBLs, but that is one of the things that I do see still happening. That it no longer are we judged by who we are, our accomplishments. It's about how well you look, can you twerk. So some of that is still going on today.
Yeah, and even in other areas, I mean, it's the game just changes because you still have trying to lessen the effect of the lion of the group in a sense. And so, like for instance, what we saw happening, whether you agree with it or not, or you are for him or against him, you see that happening with, for instance, with Bill Cosby. You see that happening with Michael Jackson. What's the other gentleman? Byron. Help me out. What's Byron's last name? But anyway, until y'all maybe come up with it, but nonetheless, you see these people with high amounts of star power that are planning to buy particular areas of the
Byron Allen.
music industry or the entertainment industry for those that I listed, to where basically, coincidentally, that hurdles are put in their way when it comes to them being now found guilty of certain matters that have already always been going on evidently, but now you put that hurdle in front of them, and so we see that on many levels. We see that in politics every now and again, to where all of the dirt naturally comes out in politics, but it comes out in a very inflamed way when it comes to our African American leaders. And so, these are the things where it's not the physical breaking, but it does slap them in the pockets, if you will, and quote unquote puts them in their place. That recognize that you are in a different environment. You are now playing our game, and that is something that they want to make sure that everyone understands.
Yeah, and I definitely and I agree with that. And I was just bringing up some information that I saw while we were preparing, and I wanted to bring up that Sarah Bartman thing too because I think we're going to have to start pushing the. Let me back up. All of the Queen talk that we've heard, a lot of the Queen talk doesn't really uh, it doesn't speak to the real character and nature of the black woman that we see today. Because the actual over sexualization of women was a tactic of black women was a tactic. It wasn't true, but they actually created a narrative about black women and basically saying that they had a high appetite for sex, and they used that to justify the rape of the enslaved woman by the owners and by them. Now I don't know if y'all caught that, but they actually created a narrative. Sounds like propaganda. They created a narrative, painting a picture for black women in slavery and using that as an opportunity to propagandize, the further usage of the black woman in her totality, whether it be her image, whether it be her body, whether it be her children, whatever it might be. And I think that's something like, as you all stated, is still happening. And I think that's something that we cannot forget because the men didn't just go through buck breaking. The women went through it too. And theirs was just a little bit different, but as damaging, but as traumatic. A lot of our sisters dealt with a lot of rape. I mean, a lot of rape. Even when it came to the fact that I was about to bring that up, that while they were taken to churches, a lot of the priests and a lot of the excuse me clergymen would rape them too. And so it's like everywhere they went, they were under attack by someone. And so I think that's something we have to bring up, that if we're going to continue to hold, you know, this idea that we're going to call our sisters queens. I think we need to continue to educate them let them know how far they have fallen away from their true divinity when it comes to their real identity as Black women. What do y'all think about that? Because I know for the past, I would say the past, what is it, 2021, I would say probably the last 25 years, it seems like we've seen a huge resurgence, you know, of the over sexualization of our sisters. Some of it's by their own cognition, and the others are seemingly they're kind of pulled into that sexual lifestyle, whether it be Meg The Stallion, whether it, you know, Trina, Kaya. I'm going back now. Lady of Rage. I mean, we can go back to all of that, and then we can come forward, and we're still seeing it. You know, we're still seeing that over sexualization of our sisters. Um,
Um,
what do we need to do? I mean,
what's
how
Well,
how do we attack
do
that?
we attack that?
well, when young ladies see a Kim Kardashian who became this mega celebrity based off of a sex tape, you know, if we don't educate our young princesses before they get to that point where they feel like, okay, that's what we need to do to, you know, make it big and make it, and then a lot of women are falling into that trap. So I do feel that if you know, being a queen starts from two places. It starts from a mentorship and learning. So, you know, the young ladies having a role model to kind of model and be groomed into what a queen is. And then the second part of that is encompassing all of what you've learned and then defining and really leveling up to what a queen is. So first you're taught what it looks like, how it should act, and then you start walking into those lessons. So but unfortunately it's a counterproductive because society is dictating what beauty looks like. Society and social media is dictating what is appealing and attractive to the male counterpart. So a lot of women, young women, feel like, okay, if I want to be socially accepted, if I want to someone to treat me like a queen, then I have to act in this manner. So it's not very popular, you know, and it really hasn't been for a long time. It's not very popular to be very modest and closed up and reserved, so to speak. You know, and I don't know if that is a byproduct of the feminist movement, but yeah, I will say that sometimes women accept the fact that it's so, or they, you know, call it okay for them to be sexualized. But at the same time, men, you know what I'm saying? I think it just works in tandem with each other. Men are sexualizing women, and women are kind of getting okay, getting used to it, and accepting that as normal behavior. But it is not. So we're gonna have to unlearn and relearn, like we said before.
Good deal. Good deal. I wanted to add on to that before we kind of transition into another point I wanted to ask or make was, you know, the other factors. Not only will they make, well, I'll put it like this: the over sexualization of, when we talked about the propagandizing of that, um, you talked about the modesty from the very beginning. I can't remember who the person was, but they said a race will never go further than its women, and they understood that. Excuse me, from centuries ago. And that was the whole point. They wanted to make the Black woman look sexually lewd and loose, but they wanted the white women to look modest and pure. And it seems that the plan since 1492 is still in operation. But it's like I said, we've gotten to the point where we're recycling that same water at this point. What can we do to break that? Well, we're going to have to find some immediate solutions. Should men openly and publicly denounce over sexualization of women? Because whenever we say anything, when it comes to trying to give a perspective from a man's point of view, it's never received. It's always followed by whataboutisms. Well, what about y'all? or well, y'all don't do it, or it's kind of like that. So should men openly and quickly, kind of denounce that type of behavior? And if so, how should we do it? Because we're just talking about some high level slavery facts, and
And
it's been on since 1492. So should we speak
should we
out?
speak out?
Well, gentlemen, what I see is what you say you want versus what your actions are showing the female population what you want is two different things. I mean, it's often has been said like you can't make a housewife, but that's the woman that you're attracted to. You're attracted to these Megs the Stallions. You're attracted to the beautiful women with the long flowing weave and the makeup. You're attracted to that. And then the young ladies who are embodying the modesty, they're called the plain Janes. Y'all ain't checking for that. So yes, I do think that if you guys are collectively saying you want a good girl, and that's how it's termed majority of the time, then make being a good girl, verbalize that. You know what I'm saying? When guys are catcalling and whistling, they not whistling at the plain Janes, okay? They whistling at the Coca-Cola bottles and the Va Vooms, So yeah, I think what you guys say you want versus what you're actually going out and getting, I think that needs to match, and that's one way. I think we can address it. But then, on my females queen side, if you're saying that and a lot of people are going. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen the trend moving from those things. Like a lot of people are accepting the natural hairstyles. A lot of people are accepting, embracing who they are as black queens. I've seen a surge of that. Which in the last decade, I was just speaking to one of my female counterparts, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, when you went into any store, and gentlemen, you can attest to this too, when you went into a large chain store such as a Walmart or a Walgreens or a Kmart, there was a small ethnic section where you can get products that was catered just specifically for the African American race. It might have been like one section amongst a sea of other products that was not made for us. But now there's an entire aisle for us. So a lot of us are creating our own natural product businesses. Carol's daughter, I mean, the list is on and on and on. So I think that I do see an uptrend in women starting to embrace, African American women starting to embrace who they are and what they look like, and embracing their natural state in their being. I do see that. But I need to see more men, verbalizing and actualizing that that's something that they're attracted to.
Well, what we got to do definitely is make sure that we're discussing those matters in our own households to make sure that we are setting the playing field level. Whether I'm educating my son about the qualities that he should be looking for in a woman, and the same thing with my daughter, what qualities we should be looking in a man. Also bringing into the fold, based on what we're talking about tonight, is also having those frank conversations about how over sexualization has presented itself over time. Going back to what you're referring to as far as slavery and the likes, and even going up to speed with why Megan Thee Stallion is popular now, why Cardi B is popular now, or Kim Kardashian, or any other big names that we can think of. Why are they popular now? And having those table talks to set the playing field level so that my son is not, uh, hopefully going after someone from a shallow standpoint, and that he is going to definitely be seeking someone who meets the qualities that he, or even my daughter for that matter, from a male attraction standpoint, that they are looking for people who are of high quality, high education, and aspiration, and integrity. And so all at the same time, not going to blame him also if he's looking for someone, my son's looking for someone that's physically fit, or my daughter's looking for someone that's physically fit also, in addition to being financially fit and intellectually fit, also mentally fit, when we talk about mental health. So I think we have to talk about these things openly with our kids, just like we talk about education and education, et cetera, that you might have about how's the day going, and when obviously they get into high school, for that matter, or even middle school, depending on what your household conversations are like. But we have to bring in this hidden history. It's history that doesn't get taught. Why is Megan Thee Stallion commonly, those types are commonly attractive? Why is it that it's not until Cardi B flashes this does she get the attention that she gets? Why is it that Kim Kardashian comes on the scene with the big rump, and now that's attractive? Where does that mentality come from? And we have to take it back to the Sarah Bartmans. So that's the education piece that I would say we need to bring into the conversation with regard to our family households, so that the playing field from a mentality is level, so that we have choices that are being made based on sanity.
Yeah, you made an excellent point, bro. Talking about how that affects us intergenerationally. I think that's something that a lot of us don't think about when it comes to our behavior, when it comes to our ability to maintain relationships, our ability to foster relationships, to become financially healthy, and etc. I think a lot of times we don't think about that, but our oppressors did. Um, again, they play chess and they studied the pathology. That's why they're so deep into eugenics. If you look around, 100 years ago, eugenics was a huge thing, like really huge. You could walk by the eugenics office, that it was just that out in the open. But the more diabolical it became, the more under it became more underground, and it became more sinister in its approach. So I agree, bro. We definitely have to start cut that monster off in our children, but we got to realize, that I can't remember how many times, but a lizard will regrow its tail after it's been severed, but after it's been severed so many times, it won't. And I think we're going to have to continuously cut that tail off until that tail stops growing. And that just simply means we're going to have to continue to push our real history over and over again, so we can kind of clean the water. That recycling of that dirty water, change the filter out. There we go. And so every time that water cycles through, we're catching some of that stuff. So our children are better than we are. Our grandchildren are better than our children. Our great grandchildren are better. You see what I'm saying? And that's how we're going to have to start getting out of this. But the problem is, I got to go back to Sister Suzette's point. A lot of the times when it comes to us trying to bring up a solution, we get into a standstill because we end up pointing fingers when it comes to, like when we were talking about the over sexualization. I think, I think that the over sexualization needs to be uh, greatly addressed by women. And the reason I say that is because if you hear it from a man, it's always going to, not always, but a lot of times you'll get the response you gave. It would be, well, y'all ain't whistling to that, or, y'all ain't checking for that. But if you hear it from a woman, you're going to hear it from, a balanced place, with someone who's not trying to say it as if we could possibly be attracted or not attracted to you. But if you hear a woman say it, she's coming from a different place. That's why I think that the women need to stand up and really, really, really start vocalizing your disdain for all of this over sexualization of the black woman, especially because we don't see. Of course, we know that the majority of the porn industry is Caucasian, but you don't see Caucasian women a lot of the times on regular mainstream television or commercials or whatever, half naked, twerking, all that kind of stuff, is because that tactic from 1492, which actually predated them because they learned it from the Greco-Romans and all of them. They understood that if we're going to be in control, our women cannot be viewed in a negative light. And so I think, and Shara says she agrees. Let's see, Brother Thomas, he agrees women have the control. They need to exercise it. Absolutely. Now the grandmama, the mama, and the granddaughter are all in the club. Thank you. Thank you. But that's something we're going to have to address. That's something we're really going to have to address if we're going to bring our families into a new position in a new place, somewhat similar to after Reconstruction. But I know there's a lot that we could talk about when it comes to history. But I did want to talk about that hair because, yeah, I might not bring it up now though because I saw that twitch in your eye, Suzette. I saw that twitch in your eye. You was like, I hate that.
Don't even start. I've already told you, African American women, we are embracing our natural state.
But
So
see,
there's a lot.
I'd have to disagree. Go ahead. You finish your point, but I have to disagree.
Well, of course, it depends on, of course, from what point of view that you're viewing from. But I just know that in the African American community, in terms of the um, you know, in the world, there a lot of sisters are going to sister locks, dreading up their hair, wearing their hair naturally. It has been a tremendous surge in the hair community where African American women or black women are accepting their hair and they're loving it. They're loving it. And not only are adult women accepting that, but they're also passing it down to their young girls, accepting their curly locks and identifying what types of hairs they have, because I don't know how deep you gentlemen are in there, but there's different types of hair. You can have 4C hair and all of this stuff. So I do see an upsurge in that. So I guess it just depends on where you're viewing it from, but I do see a lot of women accepting their natural hair and loving it, by the way.
I definitely, I can't say I see a lot. I have seen a shift, but I can't say it's a whole lot. And the reason I say that is because the hair industry is still is still over $1 trillion. We're still spending like crazy. I think, if I'm not mistaken, with all of the stimulus checks that have been issued, the black woman has still spent more money in hair than money that was distributed with the stimulus checks.
Now
So
listen, we're not gonna come from Rome overnight. So
no,
yes,
no, 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 I'm not saying that. No. I'm not saying that at all. Because I know that.
but let me bring this to your attention, and I
Okay.
and I'm sure you guys can attest to it because it's been plastered throughout the throughout the news, as well, and the legal arena. A lot of people are taking employers and companies to court because they won't allow them to wear their hair in a natural state, and African American people are winning that lawsuit. And they are allowed to come to work with their hair dreaded up. They are allowed to come into their place of business and be accepted and not discriminated against because their hair is in a natural state. And there has also been some traumatic incidents where Caucasian teachers have had the audacity to cut African American children's hair, and the parents of that child submitted a lawsuit and won. So I mean, it's just like those incidents right there that people are brave enough to identify that this is how we choose to wear our hair. We're proud of our hair, and we will not be intimidated by you saying that our hair is unacceptable because you're uncomfortable with it. So that's why I say there is an upsurge. There are businesses opening up across this nation, especially in the South, where that's all they do is treat natural hair. So I see the upsurge, and I probably because I'm in that arena, but there's definitely has been an upsurge in women accepting their hair in its natural state.
Well, I definitely don't agree with that. I mean, excuse me, I don't disagree with that at all. That there have been strides made, in the work realm when it comes to having those opportunities for employment. But I think I don't want to discredit that because that also affects the family. Your ability to contribute, financially to the family if that's the structure that you all have agreed upon. However, when it comes to the usage of synthetic hair, a lot of times the black man is not considered when that decision is made, and we're the ones that you all are expecting to marry. This is going to affect the family. I know this is a conversation a lot don't like to have, and this is the last one I'm going to make on how some of the old history still affects us even now. Um, because I think that's just something that we're going to have to address. Because I mean, if you bring up some of the statistics when it comes to what's attractive to the black man. I see you, Shara. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. We're not gonna let her preach. Oh yeah, preach, girl. Yeah, we getting our jobs and we and all this other. Yeah, but you got to ask the black man, is that something he wants? But again, I know it's going to come back to that. But I'm gonna. This is a question I want to ask because I'm not. I don't want to be pejorative about it. But the question I want to ask is, when women choose their hair, should they consider their man before 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 you go and do it? Are you considering his desires or his wants? Just a question, not even trying to be problematic, not even trying to do it. Because if you say you're doing it for men, actually you're not. Because statistics show most men don't like it. So that's why I'm asking you. What do you think?
Let me be clear. Don't like what artificial hair or weave? Is that what you're
Right,
saying?
correct. Right, correct.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I think a woman. I think that to me that's an attractive attribute. When a woman is comfortable in her skin, comfortable with the way she looks, that's a part. How she carries herself, that confidence is a part of what actually enhances her appearance.
Right, you're not
So
answering. You're not answering the question.
I am answering the question. I'm building up to it. I'm answering the question. So with that being said, of course, ultimately, I think that she would not, wholly base her decision of how to do her hair based on if her husband or counterpart is in agreement with it or not. However, I do think she should pass it by him if that's the type of relationship you have with your man. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, some men don't like it, but some men don't have a problem with it. Some men like the long Floyd. They like to pull it and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So,
Come out if you pull it.
no, it won't. Not if you put it in right. But not if they pay the right amount for it. But yes, I would say yes. If you want a happy home, no, it doesn't matter if it's hair, the dinner, finances, whatever it is. If you want a happy home, I think you should run it by your counterpart, because ultimately, when you enter into any relationship, one of the major goals is you want that person to be in harmony. You want to be in harmony with your partner. So of course you want to make sure that you're not doing anything to upset that harmony, the homeostasis in your home. So yes, short answer is yes. You should run it by him, but women, sometimes you just need to change it up.
Don't say but, because when you say
Sometimes we just want to change it up. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we just want to, change our look up. Depends, because you like we said in some of our previous shows, the woman that you marry is not that same woman over the years. She evolves, and you know what I'm saying. When you met her, she might have been, rocking Afro puffs. She might have been rocking Afro puffs, and now she's in maturity is in a different place. So yeah, I think it's good to change it up, but to keep that harmony, yes, run it by your counterpart and see if he's okay with that new woman that might be stepping in the door later on that afternoon.
So here's a point of hair history. All right, this is from a Vogue magazine blog dealing with locks history, hair discrimination. Author Lori L. Tharps is a hair historian and co-author of Hair Story: Untangling the Roots of Black Hair in America. And I bring this up just for um, the reference to locks. Some of us use the term dreadlocks, and some of us use locks. But here's something to consider when you're using dreadlocks as the term of choice. I'll just read this paragraph. Locks is a natural hairstyle that has historically been worn across several civilizations and cultures. According to Tharps, the author, quote, the modern understanding of dreadlocks is that the British, who were fighting Kenyan warriors during colonialism in the late 19th century, came across the warriors' locks and found them dreadful, thus coming to the term dreadlocks. So personally, she doesn't refer to hairstyle as locks, having dropped the word dread altogether, given its negative connotation. So that's something to consider. How do you all feel about that, knowing the history of that?
I don't identify them as dreadlocks either, but now the new term, as I alluded to earlier, is sister locks. Some people are calling them sister locks. Now that defines the how large they are, the diameter of them all. But a lot of people identify them now as sister locks or just plain locks. Mm-hmm.
Well, I did realize that a lot of the connotations when it comes to locks actually depends upon where you're from, because in Rastafarianism, they consider you that when you actually have dreadlocks, that means you're living a righteous life. But they don't call them dreadlocks either; they call them locks. So I think it comes. I think it really depends upon kind of like what Thomas says, that you just kind of respect each other, and try to take your partner's opinions and in that into consideration. If it's something that doesn't mesh, I don't think that you should force it, because that actually is something that's a huge issue, especially when you start entering into some of the religious circles. There are certain scriptures that talk about a woman's hair being her glory and things like that. And there are people that attest to that, and there's some that don't. So it does come back down to you having a conversation. And the conversations that I have had, for the most part, hasn't necessarily been favorable, to synthetic hair, for various reasons. I've even had conversations with a lot of our brothers when it comes to them choosing a woman to be with. A lot of them said they don't want a woman to marry that wears synthetic hair because of the complications, etc., that comes on later down the line. So I mean, I know that a lot of our sisters, have an identity, and I support that. I definitely support woman's choice and being able to wear your hair as you please. But I think we also have to understand that our choices a lot of times do carry consequences, and those are certain things that we just have to deal with. Because some people, they get into the workplace, they may not want to cut their locks, but it may be an impetus for them to go and become an entrepreneur, and do their own thing while they maintain, their cultural identity. So there are a lot of different things that come in to the picture, and that's why I asked the question. I wasn't trying to be pejorative or trying to be argumentative. I just wanted to find a real perspective, because it's something that our brothers actually are having issues with. Now, they'll sleep with women that wear their hair any kind of way, but I've had brothers tell me, if she's got weave, I ain't marrying her. And that affects that. And again, we're not going to get into the choices and all that, because you can't shake your head, because if a 5'2" man come to you and say he want to marry you, you gonna do the same thing. Now, I don't deal with short men, so the same thing is going to be. So don't even try that. So, but my point is that everybody has their likes and dislikes. But at the end of the day, I did want to bring it up, because it is a hurdle when it comes to us getting people to get married. When it comes to people to try to restore the Black family and the Black unity, those are certain things that we have to address. Our grandfathers didn't have to deal with a whole lot of that, but now we do. And so we're forced with the choice to make: are we going to accept it, or are we going to continue to hold fast to some of the traditional ways? So that's just why I brought it up. That was it. Um, but yeah, I know that there's some other perspectives and questions and concepts going to come up, about the hidden history. And maybe we can transition at this point if anybody else had a um, I'll read the comments while we get ready to transition to another portion. I see Thomas said the biblical story of Samson and Delilah. The moral is that the African man draws strength and nutrition from the sun into his body through the hair, which is absolutely true scientifically. It shouldn't be cut. Great for absorbing vitamin D3. Absolutely. I've even heard that some of the ancient thought was they believe that's the way that you communicated with God, was through your hair, because we're the only section of humans that actually have hair that grows up to the sun. Thomas also said everybody has a right to preference, because everyone, whether they admit it or not, has preferences. Thank you, because Suzette over here shaking her head like there's a general acceptance letter for everybody. So you know how anyway. Did I miss any other comments?
Don't do it. Don't do that.
But let's see. Shamachi said a lot of the times the men complain, but they probably met the woman while she was wearing her best wig. And I think Shamachi makes a good point.
That's called a lie.
That complaining could be the very fact that maybe he does not like synthetic hair. But I don't know. We don't know if y'all are going to change it if we don't date you and have conversations.
Have y'all ever seen "I'ma Get You, Sucker"?
Oh yeah, but Nicole Ari Parker with her with her transformer moment.
Sometimes we want to know what you're really working with before we commit, and then have to find out later that it's not real.
Exactly. And I think that's something that I don't know. Before we transition, sisters, is that something y'all take into consideration? Do y'all take that?
Well, being the fact that we're now living in a world where men are wearing fake waves and fake beards.
Now see you. Now see that. That's right. You're gonna take 3 or 4 men and say all men.
It's more than 3 or 4.
300.
I don't know. It's more than that, but it's a trend. It's a trend. Not to mention the fake hairlines. The fake hairlines when they get haircuts and stuff. We ain't even gonna go there.
Now see we doing that. Okay. Now see, now we're gonna do that. And we need to go ahead and let's talk about the foundation and the covering up of that thin. Huh? Lipstick, contacts, fake hair. Look at Sean. Look at Sean. Ain't nobody study.
But to answer your question, I think that all of us, whether male or female, we need to get back to our natural state and just being okay with the skin that we're in. And if somebody cannot accept you for who you are in your natural state, then that's probably not the person you need to be with anyway.
I agree. I totally agree. But yes, sir, brother Black. I know we got some other concepts and topics we want to bring up, and we're going to go ahead and transition into some other hidden history facts as we continue to unfold and prepare this blueprint for all of you all out there. Again, thank you all. Good to see Shara on. Thank you, Sister C. Good to see Jarkay, my sister. Good to see you. Good to see you. Anybody else popped on while we were talking? Did I miss anybody, team?
I think you can see it quicker than I am. I'm looking at 2 different devices, so yeah, I think you got it.
Yeah, I think we got it. And I did see I saw a new let's see, My Vivid Life came on. Good evening. And Gloria Miller's been on. Good to see you. She made some great points also. Gloria Miller, she did make some great points as we were talking about
Cedric Montgomery just popped in.
Settle. All things Georgia. All things Georgia, all things Atlanta almost. But good to see you, brother Sid. Thank you for joining us on this evening. I think I got everybody at this point. Yeah, good to see you. No more Braves games, so we got all of your attention, Sid. But yes, sir. We're gonna transition at this time. Take it away, brother Black.
Well, I think that's a very committed brother there, despite the circumstances, and so do congratulate the Atlanta Braves.
Yes, sir.
But I've got a short video I'm going to flash on the screen here, and that'll give us a transition to what we might discuss here later.
CBS 46 is celebrating Black History, and tonight we focus on Forsyth County. Well, Yasmin Austin.
We're gonna try to see if we can get the audio corrected for the video. So we'll definitely get that squared away really quickly, and we'll jump back into that. But we definitely want to bring up some of these new things, brother Black. Do you think we got it ready to go?
Yeah, excuse me for a sec. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's see. Start that and get some audio going here. Let's see. All right.
CBS 46 is celebrating Black History, and tonight we
Are you able to hear it?
Well,
Yes.
Yasmina Alston shows us how the county's past is giving rise to a hopeful future with the help of a powerful symbol. Over 100 years ago, Black residents here in Forsyth County were forced to leave. Now, a group of people from different backgrounds are coming together to tell this history, starting with a jar of soil.
My grandmom is the second oldest child.
Brothers Charles Brogan and Larry Strickland grew up in Roswell, but their family origin spans back to Forsyth County.
I don't know whether it was shamed or what, but they just never talked about it.
Their grandmother, Rosalie Brown, was born in Forsyth County and lived here with her family up until 1912.
It was always told that they were forced out.
And they were forced out, along with every other Black resident in the county.
We didn't have Black residents all those years. They didn't come back.
1912 was the year a white woman named May Crow was murdered. Robert Edwards, a Black man, was lynched shortly after.
Robert Edwards was actually taken from the jail and killed and dragged through the street. And his body was displayed, and the body was riddled with bullets. And there was literally thousands of Forsyth County residents there to see it.
2 Atlanta teens were hanged soon after, causing terror in the community.
Those hangings and lynching sent a message for all Forsyth County Black residents to be gone out of the county, and they stayed gone until the 1970s.
Since then, the county had and still has a racist reputation, according to Brogan. Now, the Community Remembrance Project of Forsyth County is acknowledging what happened.
Why are you bringing this up? This only brings up trouble. And I'm like, well, bringing it up and talking about it, that's what a community looks like.
Inspired by the Equal Justice Initiative, the group had a soil collection at the site of Edwards' lynching. 2 jars were filled. One sits in Forsyth, the other in Montgomery at the wall of jars, presenting a lynching.
Pictured in the wall with all of them. And that's when it really hits home about the meaning of acknowledging and understanding that history.
It's come full circle for this group, all interested in the history for different reasons. Brogan's family never came back to Forsyth County. He says this important project brought him back to a place where his loved ones were once not welcome.
I was still a little bit uncomfortable, but I understand. I understand why I'm uncomfortable. It's something in the back of my mind.
And the group tells me this is only the beginning for the projects and the work they plan on doing to tell the county's Black history. Reporting in Forsyth County, Yasmina Alston.
So here's the thing with this. This is one particular area in Forsyth County. We have a ton of them that we could do digging and research. And the point of this is that we would have to do the digging and the research for that matter. But this is not something like, for instance, we were talking before the show, talking about Georgia history. All right, we're commonly taught Georgia history. I grew up elementary school. They taught Georgia history, or our sons and daughters are taught a narrative about Georgia history, but we're not taught what these race supremacists were doing the whole while we are being taught this Georgia history. And some of this does not date back very far. But in this case, what we just heard doesn't actually exist only in northern regions, and it doesn't just only exist certain areas of the country that we hear about, such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, when we talk about the 1921 Tulsa race riots or massacre that occurred. That seems so far away from a geography standpoint. But we know about New York City, Central Park. That was a city that Black people resided in, and they were pushed out of that, to the point where the government took it over. They could build a park. That's typically the narrative that takes place, but it's not taught. When she just talked about the person who was lynched and drugged through the streets, that hits right home here. The same type of behavior from a racial standpoint, mob racial standpoint, that took place with Mary Turner. And so we'll get into some of these narratives that we don't get talked about, but when Mary Turner spoke out about her husband being killed and riddled with bullets, just the same way that she reported, that's the same thing that happened here in Valdosta. And what happened was that the person that was killed way before they were hung. I mean, they killed these people like 3 times over. They killed us 3 times over, and so he was actually shot and drugged with a rope around his neck, drugged through what is now Patterson Street. Well, what Patterson is now renowned as Patterson Street. But can you imagine that history is what you drive down every day? And one of our ancestors was drugged with a noose around his neck all the way down through Patterson Street to the neighboring county, I think Cecil area, to where he was then hung up and riddled with bullets as if he wasn't already dead enough. But this is the type of mentality that a notion of white supremacy takes place in our history. And these are the things that have set us back from a generational wealth standpoint, but no one wants to acknowledge it. We have this term that is now in the forefront called critical race theory. I'm not even going to get into that debate. The point is that it's not critical of a theory, it's factual. These are the facts that we don't discuss in school settings as to why is it that Black people in America have had such a harder time receiving a leg up or getting a level playing field. These are the things. We had a city such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, where it was Black made, everything was Black owned. They bombed it. When we had a city that was ours, such as in Forsyth County up in near the Atlanta area, or Forsyth County, there is that they drove the people out in order to make a lake and a dam and something that would be a reservoir of water. That's the narrative that it is now. Lake Lanier is a reservoir of drinking water. It also fuels the water dams so that electricity can be provided for the area. But they don't tell you that there is a city underneath all of that water. I mean, these are just narratives that we do not hear about, yet we are told, and we're the put upon us as if we are or were second-rate citizens. To the point now, it's like, oh, why can't you pull your bootstraps up and get on equal playing field? So these are things that I feel that when we talk about even the slavery narrative, we talk about the Jim Crow era, we talk about Reconstruction, and we talk about the civil rights movement. These are things that certain individuals only want us to know, because the more that we know, just like we're not taught about Nat Turner and the Haitian Rebellion as heavily as we're taught about the slave narrative. You know about Harriet Tubman more than you know about Nat Turner. You know about Martin Luther King Jr. more than you know about Malcolm X, because they don't want you to think that you should and be able to rebel. But yet still, we're taught the rebellious nature of the Puritans and the Pilgrims came over that were rebelling against their European forefathers, if you will, or native country in Europe. Yet and still, that instills within them a feeling that they have the power, if they don't like something, to rebel. Hence, what you saw January 6th this year is because that's the mentality and the heritage that they've been taught the whole while, is that if you don't like something, rebel. Meanwhile, that's not taught in our school systems, and it's not taught in our households. So unfortunately, we have to take that mantle up, I believe, and actually spearhead the teaching of that. So that's why I say bring this up, when we're talking about hidden history, is that we have these areas of the country, even in our own backyard, when it comes to Mary Turner, to where we should have obviously rebelled a long time ago. But, at this point, we're in a point to where we can rebel with our minds, with our education, with our collective, working together in a sense of changing our communities. So that's my little plug on some of the things that we can talk about. Suzette, do you have any comments that you like to make based on what you said?
Yes, of course, absolutely. As you were saying, for so long, the educational system and some of our cultural counterparts have been trying to direct the narrative to where the truth is not really highlighted, and making the white America seem a little less threatening than what they actually are. If we go back Again, to your example of Mary Turner right here in Valdosta, Georgia, it wasn't so long ago. That happened in May the 19th, 1918. Okay, so not too long ago. And talking about taking over PTSD from generation to generation. When I studied her story, a lot of people don't know just how horrific it was. Because not only did her husband get lynched and, as you said, drugged down Patterson Street to neighboring counties, but her herself, she was, traumatized, victimized, all of the words included. She was done all of this when she made an outcry against the treatment that her husband received and how tragically he was killed or murdered, because that's what it was. She herself became the target. So the mob, she was 8 months pregnant when she spoke out against her husband being killed. The mob then turned their hostility towards her. So they cut her baby out of her while she was still alive. The mob did. And then as Mary Turner's fetus fell on the ground, one of the white mobsmen stomped on the fetus's head. So that's how horrific it is. And we're talking about, people coming to us when we try to make an outcry in public, try to get equality and start these activisms, movements. Sometimes you would hear a pushback of, well, get over it already. It's not like this was just not too many years long ago. And when you read that story, it traumatizes you as a parent, because your children, you're sending your children out, and you're just, concerned of what they just might encounter. I mean, that's how the whole Black Lives Matter movement was born in this country, because of some of the mistreatments that we receive for people in power, kind of terrorizing our people. So definitely we need to educate our younger generation, educate ourselves, not to necessarily, start a rebellion. However, I do believe in by all means necessary, but to just make us aware of, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago when we've been terrorized, and really, honestly, in the deep south, I personally, there are some back roads I personally don't travel without my ha ha ha, in the car with me, because that's just, you just never know. That's the day and age that we. It's the racism is alive and well, and for someone to say that it's not, they're not in touch with reality.
Well, just look at the Ahmaud Arbery case that's going on right now. That's just a bunch of, we just call it what it is, a bunch of uneducated rednecks, traveling and traumatizing a young black male to the point that he was killed. That looks eerily the same way that, we're describing for Mary Turner. I mean, the details of that is even grosser than what you even described there, Suzette. And the fact that you can recite that without reading it, which I'm reading it here. I mean, to punish her at what was a Folsom's Bridge, which is basically between Lowndes and the county border of Lowndes and Brooks County. But to punish her, they turned her by her ankles and hung her up down from a tree. Mob
Yeah.
members gasoline on her and burned her alive. One member of the mob
It's difficult to read. It's difficult.
causing her unborn child to drop to the ground where it was reportedly stomped and crushed. I mean, when you look at this stuff, then she was riddled with bullets by the mob. I mean, you mean to tell me we can't talk about this, but we can talk about, the freedoms that we take on because of how well the Patriots have fought, and they killed so many, British, et cetera. And we don't get to talk about this stuff.
We can't let their, the trauma that they went through, we cannot let it go unspoken. We have to let our children and our next generation remind them of, um, the reality of what it is living in this America, what the reality of it is. And to me, I've always been aware, because I'm maybe like four generations um, out of slavery or indentured servitude. Anyway, so that has that we used to get together every Sunday, so that was a part of our Sunday gathering and fellowship, family fellowship, is we would listen to the older generation, and they would pass down their struggles as well as their successes of how they survived it all. Because even listening to Mary Turner's story is so traumatic. You have to be, what I'm saying, you have to wonder, like, how does generation after generation get through all that trauma? So they pass down their stories as well as their antidotes on how to live in the world that we live in.
Unmute yourself.
I'm muted. My bad. Everything that you were talking about as far as passing information down just reminds me of how fueled I am every time that this country hashtags never forget for 9/11, but wants us to forget about what happened in slavery. And so the thing is that Mary Turner happened around, because it was a period of a couple of days that all this happened, but a lot of it centers around May 19th. And so again, if I'm wrong, May 20th, whichever date. But the point I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with the fact that we should be, from a community standpoint, memorializing this. And I know the Mary Turner Project typically did this at the marker, which was riddled by bullets quite recently. So they moved that up to Atlanta, to the civil rights area up there. But nonetheless, so the point is that our city doesn't even recognize this, and it happened right down Patterson Street, part of the traumatic event, and our city doesn't even recognize this. And from a national front, if our city can on 9/11 have a memorial service in the morning where the mayor and the commissioner get together and talk about, never forget the first time responders get together and talk about, that event, horrific event, yes, that happened on 9/11. However, where is the same uh, empathy and celebration, memorialization of what happened on what June 1st, May 31st, whichever one you want to recognize, when it comes to a national recognition of Tulsa occurring? And again, just like Thomas says, Tulsa and Central Park, Forsyth County, they're not the only ones that were bombed. He talked about Philadelphia was bombed also. There's other areas that have been flooded underwater after the people have been driven out. So this is a natural occurrence that seemingly has gone on in the past quite recently when it comes to black settlements that were thriving. So what does that send a message to, or who does that send a message to when we're talking about black excellence today? And that's why I said back in the beginning, when certain people, typically of our counterparts culture, but certain people in their demographic, when they see black excellence occurring, they try their best to strip it away. They try their best to throw mud at it, and so to make sure that the integrity of it is challenged. And so that's a lot of what we're seeing. If we now make this full circle back to one of the episodes that we had quite recently, the previous week or two, is that when you're looking at somebody like Tony Tong or Big Nick trying to run for office, it's very coincidental that this area finds a way to run a particular mud ad so that they cannot fulfill their goals.
Try to disqualify them, yeah. So,
I
so
think all
gentlemen, do you guys think that we need to be moving towards a society where we are creating another Tulsa, we are creating another Rosewood, Florida, where we are creating a very self-sufficient community? Is that something that we should adopt moving forward?
Well, I think wholeheartedly we should be moving in the same direction collectively. And for those that I've alluded to this on a couple of other episodes, but for those that are part of some of the calls that we're having collectively, that's the direction that we need to take. We've seen things happen at a larger scale in more thriving areas like Jacksonville, like Atlanta, Savannah, and other metropolitan areas where we have entities that are there in the city that we can go to and feel at home when we're dealing with business, when we're dealing with community activism. And that's what we have not ignited in this area. When I say area, I'm not just talking about Austin Lowndes. I'm talking about the whole southern region. that, for whatever, and I don't even say for whatever reason. I won't even say that. We know the reason. We've been traumatized. Every time somebody tries to step to the forefront, a scare tactic is used to pull them back. So we got a lot of leaders sometimes that are actually afraid from the sense of a slavery narrative that has been ingrained in them, that if they try to progress, they're going to get their hand cut off, in a sense of figuratively today, but literally back in those days. So that, I think, the answer to your question is that yes, we need to be marching in the right direction collectively, black owned, black entity, so that we are progressing together and at the same time supporting each other. That's the only way that this happens. We can't come up with a city, a group, a settlement, a community. I mean, a lot of the communities that are here that are actually the most thriving communities in Lowndes County were settled for white families. Just call it what it is. Kinderloo, Stone Creek. These are areas to where these were really proclaimed to be for those that only could afford in those areas. And now we've broken that mold to now we have people that are residents of those areas, but I'd have to welcome them to the conversation, see what their experience has been like, even now in 2021 as we go into 22. So that's a sad part of the narrative, is that we're still dealing with some issues, but we still have to say, okay, if that's not the option for us, then what do we do? What options do we have left? If the community that I live in, that Suzette lives in, that our neighbors in Brooks County, Lanier County, if they do not get the support to be a thriving community from a black business, nonprofit, etc., then where do we go? So we need to do it ourselves.
So the do for self, which I'm 100%, 1000% in support of. Um, I think we also need to, at some point, develop a blueprint of how we're going to begin to increase. Come on, Lolita, you taking the words out of my mouth. How we're going to increase black camaraderie. There's a lot that we have to offer. And we actually know, that we can do it because it's already been done. I think the problem is a lot of the times we want to meter other people's success. And a lot of times, if someone else is balling faster than you, then you all of a sudden are overcome with this jealous spirit. And I think that's something that I'm not saying it's everybody, but or every area, but I think it's just something that we're going to have to address overall, and understand that I don't have to necessarily meter your success. I don't have to agree with you. I should agree to the actual blueprint, to the process, because that's what they do. All of them don't agree with each other. All of them don't go to the same church, don't believe in the same God, don't go shooting in the same at the same hunting club. And they a lot of them have a lot of disagreements. But at the end of the day, they know that it's an overall blueprint to keep us on top. We'll deal with our individual issues later, But at the end of the day, it's race first. And I think that's something that we have not picked up on. We picked up on a lot of things from our slave masters over the years, over the decades, over the centuries. But I think a lot of the good stuff, or a lot of the intricate things that could actually cause us to create a system, it's like we're blind to it. Or if we're not blind to it, it's almost like we're allergic to it. And I think there's some of those things we're going to have to pick up on those things. There was a reason why they brought the entire family to the hanging. There was a reason why they left you hanging in at the corner square for days and weeks. It was a chess move. It was a tactic. It was a psychological imprinting of your eternal position in our society. And they knew, the children didn't understand that, but they knew black folk got hung. Black folk got castrated. Black folk were drugged down the street for whatever. Black folk were extremely punished. And eventually they understood how to do that. I think those stuff like that actually creates a system where everybody can partake in, so that even if you're not well aware of the entire process, you understand this is going to take us somewhere. I think that's something that we have to begin to make sure we teach everyone everything, and understand that Our children are the next leg to this process. You know, we're step number 5. My children are step number 6. Their children, step number 7. You know, we're going to continuously get this thing until we eventually get ourselves out of this hole. So I agree with both of y'all. I really do. We just going to have to come together and get our stuff together. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Just want to note to recognize Mr. Nalita. Definitely commend you on that point. I just sent you a message on Facebook Messenger. Respond to that. Char has the same invitation also, so that we can also be on the same page and start making that ship move. So, like I said, I agree, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen, and that's to be discouraging. It's never meant to happen overnight. But like you just said, you put it in the plain terms, is that we're step number 5, and so we're only by design through the chess move is that we're going to complete this step, and we're going to do it very well. And so whatever that step entails, as far as all the activities that go along with it, we have to be satisfied with that, and not think that everything's going to be a quick microwave solution.
Now, two wonderful two wonderful experiments, if I, for lack of a better term, that I have seen that I would like to see duplicated, and it actually correlates with what you just said, brother Bold, about the jealousy and the terms of feeling that one part of our inter society is going to outdo another. So one study that I saw was an allegiance to that in terms of inclusiveness. So what they experimented with was the fact that they wanted one community, one African American community, so where the lower class community was still living in the community where doctors and the upper class and the higher in terms of economic community, they all lived in the same community, so that the kid from the ghetto or the lower class could see that they had a real live role model up the street. Dr. Such and Such was up there, so that he can aspire to be that one day. And I saw that article. I thought it was wonderful. Number one. And then another research, or another actuality that I saw, and you guys can research it for yourself, is a city that they developed in September 2020 entitled Freedom, Georgia. It's a real life place. About 19 families came together and they purchased 92 acres of land, and they created an entire African American community where African American businesses will be established there, African American homes, and it's self-sufficient. You guys can go kind of follow their progress. Freedom, Georgia is somewhere near Macon, Georgia. So my thing is, and we need, if somebody has already, made the blueprint, why not follow that? So they're at this point, I've been kind of tracking them. They've been successful, and they're, adding on different, facilities, as well as professional places there where you can go to the doctor in your same community. Your child can go to school in that same community. You can bank in that community. So they're really doing it. I think that we need to find successful programs like that and then just duplicate it across this country. And I think that's one way that we can probably progress as a people.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that would be a step down the line. And the reason I say that is because Shimani makes a great point. Shimani and Tanisha, where they're talking about other movements that could immediately counteract all of the community building or the environment building. Because, Tanisha said we have to do some work when it comes to our area of mental health before we can even begin to understand the value of uniting. And that's absolutely true, because if our mental health is off, we can't function. We're led by other ideologies that are not our own. We're led by other triggers that are results of rather some things that our parents have went through, our grandparents, or the environment that we were raised in, or whatever. And I think that's absolutely correct. Before we actually, get together and purchase 90 acres, 300 acres, whatever, have those people, what we talked about a little bit before that, having that mind frame, being in unity, having that camaraderie. And I think that comes from healing from within first as individuals, and then I guess we could talk about socially when it comes to the way we interact with each other. I think that's where it needs to start, because if we don't kind of address all of the factions that exist amongst us, we'll get the land, build the homes, have all the things that can sustain us in that, on that compound, and still be divided with the feminism movement, with the Chris Rock with the hair movie, with the clothing, with the how do we rear our children, even with the LGBTQ plus movement. Now we have a lot of different additional variables in our fight now that have kind of been thrown on us, in addition to all the other stuff we're dealing with, that we have to address. And I think that's where we need to start in order for us to be able to get to that, because that's an excellent point. Because we actually can replicate that right there in Lowndes County. Of course, it would be out in the country somewhere, which I think is better. But I also understand Thomas's point that it'll be hard to build a house that's within someone else's house. And I understand what he's saying. But what we're saying is we're trying to make sure that we can provide something satellite that's local to us that we can quote unquote call it ours. But yeah, I think it goes back to that starting building ourselves or repairing ourselves, and then repairing our children, family, etc., to have a thriving environment, society.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in line with what you're saying, because at some point we have to start doing. We can cite all the reasons why we can't, why we're in somebody else's house. We're always in somebody else's house. That's the conditions that we're under. So we have to think. I'm not a military person, but somewhere from a military strategy, art of war. We've got to think outside the box from a strategic standpoint. What does a military person do when they're behind enemy lines and they have to survive? They have to overtake, overcome, whatever the verb is. But we are behind enemy lines, and we have been for over 400 years. So what are we going to do about it? And so we all know that we have this cultural concept of crabs in the barrel. So and I say this rhetorically, does that mean, or I ask this rhetorically, does that mean then that we should build with the selective few in order to get it lifted off the ground? I would suggest yes. Unfortunately, that's where I think, depending on how you look at it, it might be unfortunate, but I think that's kind of where we are, is that we need a lot of strong individuals, leaders, put all the descriptive words in together, and nouns, but you need that selective number to build that community. And that's what I'm saying, is that we need to collectively start getting together, to start that conversation, put actions together, and complete actions. Because just like you said, is that if it's somewhere out in the county, then okay, learn the county rules. Start to infiltrate. Just like brother, Rico Ramsey is now on the zoning board of appeals. All right, we need to start infiltrating some of these boards, and I say infiltrate lightly because we just basically are playing the game. We need a couple of people on the board at United Way, where I am. You need a couple of board members on the chamber, where there are only one or two brown people on that board. So we need ultimately a plan to where we start getting into these areas so that we can, basically learn the system, but also activate our own goals that are inconsistent, or excuse me, that are consistent with the system parameters. Learn how to play the game, basically. And we got people that know how to do it. We just need to start getting together and having these conversations. So that's why I say, we have these platforms, and we need to take advantage of them. So if there are ideas, then start reaching out to people that can bring us together.
I want to touch before Suzette gives us her comments. I want to talk about that small thing. I think a lot of us don't realize that what you were saying is exactly where those incorporated counties come from. A lot of those were people who actually exited the cities because they did not agree with the local government and those that were in office. So they went out and they established their area that wasn't necessarily populated. It was a part of the county that a lot of people weren't living in because it was too far out. And they decided to incorporate that area. And guess what they did? They nominated the people who they wanted to be their mayor, their county commissioner, not county commissioner, but a representative or whatever. They created their own boards so that they could be represented when they had to come to the local meetings. They had their representations that would speak to their needs and their desires, and they did it their own way. They actually created their own system. And so that's another thing that we can do. We can find a place way out in the country, somewhere in Lowndes County, Brooks County, wherever. Some of that stuff is bordering. Some of us drive from Valdosta to Quitman every day for work. Some people probably would prefer to live on the border. Cut your commute in half, whatever. But be able to provide or create your own situation and do just like those corporations have done. And that way you can immediately have representation that can start making decisions for you, like within 2 years. So, but I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to really resonate the same thing that both of you gentlemen were saying. And we have to start somewhere. We're not going to have the perfect solution. The perfect solution does not exist. I was very fortunate to hear, and I'll condense it for lack of time, of course. But basically, there was a general, or there was a room of a military high ranking officers, and there was one particular gentleman that everybody was going back and forth on a dilemma on this topic that they were talking about. One side, they just could not agree, and then one general came in. He made the decision, and they all were, one of his counterparts pulled him to the side, like, how could you make a decision so confidently and so fast? We've been going back and forth with this for months, and then you come in and you resolve the issue just like that. And ultimately, his response was, I made a decision. So if I made the wrong decision, I would deal with the wrong decision, make the consequences, and then we'll get back on course. If I made the right decision, we'll move forward. So I think that's where we stuck. People don't want to commit to a decision, whether it's right or wrong. You're going to make the contingencies that need to be made to course correct. But when you do absolutely nothing, of course you're going to have failure. It's just, that's how it goes. So, I of course, everybody's going to have an opinion, but when you do nothing, that's exactly what you're going to yield. Nothing.
You are right. Mike just dropped. You are right.
Give you a Don DeMarco. You got to definitely bring up the right. Well, definitely. I see that Brother Thomas. He's actually letting us know he's on the HUD and Community Development Block Grant Committee, and Neighborhood Action Association and Police Advisory Board. So that's one person right there. Of course, that is on a different leg of the boards that actually could give us some information. To a lot of us, or I put it like this: he has access to rooms a lot of us don't. Information that a lot of us don't. So it's not, a lot of it goes back to, it's not a lot about what you know, but who you know. And so we can really build our repertoire up when it comes to our knowledge, and us able to strategize and figure out what can we do. Because I think it's way past time for us to do something outside of having an ambition to move into Kindaloo, have an ambition to move into Cherry Creek or wherever. We've got to raise our level of expectations of what we consider success is. And it's not moving next door to them. It's creating our own and rivaling what they have, because that's why they got rid of Tulsa. I remember my grandfather telling me a story before he passed. He was telling me about what happened back in I think it was Jasper or Live Oak. There was something like a Tulsa down there. I mean, they didn't bomb it, but it was a huge, what was it, a Rosewood type situation right there in Jasper or Live Oak. I can't remember which one it was. And he was telling how they did the same thing to the blacks there in that little area that they did up in Forsyth. So again, they've been doing it over and over again, and it's not because they hate black. It's because they hate what black produces. They hate how black always resounds. They hate how black always resurrects. They hate how blacks always find a way out of no way. They hate the fact that no matter how many times you bury us, we keep coming back like Bebe's kids. That's why they keep doing it. And so something has happened since then and now. And we have to, I think we're gonna have to just resurrect, that fight in us, that Nat Turner in us. I think we're gonna have to really resurrect what was his name from Haiti? Louverture. I can't remember his first name. Do y'all remember his first name from Haiti? I know Thomas does. Help me out, Thomas. Louverture. He's from Haiti. He was the one that was over that huge revolution down there in Haiti. I think it was Toussaint Louverture or something like that. But uh, resurrect that type of mentality and not going in with our hands out, not going in looking for, I appreciate you. Would you help me out? No, we need to go in there with some money, go in there with some knowledge, go in there with some, go in there, like Thomas said, commanding decision making. And so we can really, 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 he forgot. Not that encyclopedic mind he got. But yeah, I think that's something we can do. I really do. I
You
was
were actually right, bro. It's
I was
Tucson.
okay, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that's something we could do, man. I think that's something we need to start, like you said, having these secret meetings, not posting it up, having those moments where we get together and speak face to face or in a room some kind of way where we can really hash out these ideas and start actually knowing people who know where vacant property is, making connections to people in Valdosta in the surrounding areas that have money that really want to have a black community. I think that's something that can happen. I really do. If we
Yeah,
pull our
that's what I
money
was going to say
together,
is that we just to add to that, and
yeah,
please continue, but just to add to the point that we have so many black real estate agents here just in Valdosta that we have the building blocks to make a lot of this stuff happen. Like I said, we just need more people on these calls to make sure that we are stepping in that direction because it's bound to happen. But if you don't put the blocks together, there is no building.
Well, yeah, when you you have to put them in together correctly as well. So we were talking about making sure that the mental health isn't component is intact. But we have, like you said, once we all come together, we can make an honest assessment of what resources we have in the room. So again, so we have to make sure that we're all on the same page and we want to meet the same end. And that's the thing. We're so divided in terms of the end goal. We're gonna have to, find a common goal, and then everybody work towards that, and not have these side agendas or personal altered agendas. Let's try to have a solid, unified, solidified goal so that we can all reach it and everybody use whatever your specialty and resource is to obtain that goal. But I have to make a sidebar because I grew up in a family that was living prior to integration. And so they saw the transition. They went from segregated to integration in terms of whole the community education and all of that. And I had a firsthand testimony from them that they felt like the race was better off, when we were segregated, because you had teachers that looked like you had, practitioners that looked like you, and they felt like the quality of education was better during those times because the people who were teaching you was very conscious about how important it was for you to get this education so that it could be the leg that you need to the next step in your life. So we have to go back to that integrity component, where we're sowing into the next generation because we know so what are the building blocks, and in terms of the black and bold, the blueprint, what I'm saying, we have to reinforce that blueprint so that the next generation can be stronger than we are today.
Shout out to Amon Rashad that just chimed in. Armand, bruh, thank you for sharing the video and also liking the video post.
good deal. Well, family, we have come to our halt, our stopping point, and I wanted to make sure that all of us have gotten our last comments out before we get ready to wrap everything up. Anybody on this wonderful cast have anything else to share?
I would just say,
Yeah.
going back to the whole critical race theory, understand that, if you're a proponent of it or if you are in disagreement of it, I would just say really understand that it's more than what the narrative of what a Republican would say. It has nothing to do with trying to make a white child ashamed of their heritage. It makes the white child more intellectual and more informed about why that child has the privilege that they do. It also empowers a black child to understand, oh, I get it now. So these are the things that my ancestors had to overcome. That's why I'm strong. I'm not inferior to the next child that's sitting near me. And so it also opens up the dialogue so that people can get a full understanding of why there is discrepancy or disparity, for that matter, in certain communities. And so when we look at why there's Southside, why there's gerrymandering, why there's police brutality, all of these things are addressed in what is termed now as critical race theory. But I would just even challenge, it's not about critical race theory again. It is just fully educating everyone of the black experience. And when we come to a realization that we need to do that throughout history, education, then we can talk about, the levels of the playing field being leveled. And also we can talk about not being so divisive. But don't tell me we're being divisive when you're only telling a quarter or an eighth of the story, and then want to say, oh, you're being divisive when you want to include the entire narrative of what we've been going through. So these are the things that we try to advocate for here on the Black and the Bold, and personally myself. So if you have any questions regarding any of this stuff, please reach out to one of us on this live stream between myself, Edward Mack, Suzette Michelle, myself, Dwayne Johnson. But that's all I had to say, bro. Just to kind of put it out there that this is not something that we should lie down quietly about, and it's at the same time we need to be very loud about it within our own households, so that we at least are educating our families.
That's exactly what I think. Go ahead, Suzanne.
No, I was just going to say, don't wait until legislation is passed before you educate your youth and your family members about critical race theory. Go ahead and implement that ASAP. Not only would you learn about the historical things, but being in the Deep South, we all have experienced some type of racism moments. So you know it's going to bring you closer as a family when you realize what your older generation have gone through. Even that's going to bring it home, even to get you to where you are in your point in life today. And it just brings the family closer. I know it did for me when we sat down and they told me their stories and that they had never told. It just brought us together as a family, and made, as Dwayne said, it made you very proud of the accomplishments, to know that your older generation was so strong and still so resilient and still had joy and still was able to laugh and still was able to love. It just brings it closer to home. So don't wait until it gets legislated. Talk about these things today. Go over your history, and then appreciate the moments that you have with your loved ones, and aspire to be better every single day.
If they are talking white supremacy, there's nothing wrong with black supremacy. I'm going to teach the fact that our melanin, our culture is very strong as anybody else's culture, and skin type, color, and all that, genetics. We're just as superior as anyone else out there. But I just want to jump in and add another one, is that there's a reason why you get the hashtag never forget for 9/11. It's because of what, like you just said, it's on the opposite spectrum, where there's a sense of pride, there's a sense of patriotism, nationalism. But again, where is that in the black community? We have to create that ourselves. So we have to step forward and, like I said, do it in our household, excuse me. And also we have to push for our own communities to make others known about what we want memorialized, what we want discussed and talked about. But but we've got to actually start at home.
I agree. Great points. Great points. Brother Cedric said, Black folks, we have got to start answering our jury summons and serving jury duty. That is so true. It is absolutely apparent in Mr. Ahmaud Arbery's case. They constantly play that game. One person of color, one. In a case like that, one. It's just the games that they play. And we're going to have to learn that we're going to have to stop trying to distance ourselves from this monster and start doing like David did and say, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Well, who, what? You say what now? We got to really start answering these summons and going in and representing ourselves, going in and standing and showing our face and being active in this process to let our community know that we're not just I guess consumers of our community, but we're actual movers and shakers of our community as well. So great points, Suzette. Great points, Brother Bowl, Sister Beautiful. Thank you so much. We want to say thank you to everyone that has participated on our live tonight. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We really appreciate you all. And if you haven't noticed, we have been broadcasting on 2 different platforms, on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. So give us a hand right there in your living room. Put your hands together for for all that we have done. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much for everything. You guys make this show exactly what it is. And listen, we wouldn't show up every Tuesday if you all wouldn't come and make it so great for us. So thank you again. We love you. Yes, beautiful. Go ahead.
Very quickly, I just want to again say thank you to my brothers, Brother Bowl, Brother Black, and to the viewers, because I was out last week. My mom was in the hospital, and everybody, we were very uplifted from all the well wishers. And thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, it's that time, y'all. It's that time. We got to let y'all go to bed. Put that head in the bed, but we got to give you some good word before we get out of here. I want to come this evening really quickly from something that I found I thought was really good, but we've all heard it before. But the quote says, I'm too busy working on my own grass to notice if yours is greener. I'm too busy working on my own grass to notice if yours is greener. We already know where this comes from. A lot of times we look at other people's possessions, other people's successes, and we look at it and we say, "Oh man, I want to be over there, and I want my grass to be that green, and I want mine to be that plush, and I want my yard to be so beautiful." But my mama told me a long time ago. She said, "Never be jealous of what somebody has because you don't know what they had to do to get it." And so a lot of times we have to realize that we have to begin to focus on our own business, our own stuff. Because just the other day, it's about time for me to cut the grass one last time before winter really hits. And I was walking across the grass and I had my head up. But in my grass, I have those sticker burrs. I don't know the scientific name. Don't look at me like that in that tone of voice. I don't know what it is. But it hurt when I step on it. But a lot of times we're so busy looking around, we don't take time to look down or see where we are. And so I'm too busy looking at the street, looking at my neighbors, looking at the birds. All the while I'm stepping on these sticker burrs. In other words, I need to start focusing on my own grass, focusing on what I got for myself, because I'm reminded your greatest responsibility is to love yourself and to know that you are enough. Stop trying to compare yourself to other people. Stop worrying about how long her hair is and how short yours is. Stop worrying about how tall he is and how short you are. Stop worrying about that Maserati or that Benz he's driving and you still pushing that 89 Civic. Don't worry about it. You are too busy working on your own grass. You got your own goals. You have your own aspirations. And even though their season came before yours, just remember, if you keep pushing, it's going to happen for you too. Because sometimes you have to appreciate your own self in the mirror, flaws and all. Sometimes you have to celebrate your own small victories. Sometimes you have to be like David and encourage yourself. Sometimes you have to put blinders on and focus on your own objectives. Why? Because you're too busy working on your own grass. I ain't got time to notice what you got going on. So what I want to tell y'all today, stop looking to the left or to the right. Because I'm reminded the jockeys were having a problem with their horses not staying in their lane. So whenever they would have those horse races, horses would go from side to side, knocking each other over, having issues. And someone came up with the bright idea: if you put blinders on a horse, he would run twice as fast and twice as harder. I wonder what would happen to your life if you put blinders on. You probably would run twice as fast and work twice as hard. I love you all. We love you here at the Black and the Bold. And we're just encouraging y'all, put your blinders on. You got your own grass to worry about and your own race to win. We'll see y'all next Tuesday. Until then, peace, love, and light. See you next time.